do was, now we got the question for May 2015. It was May 2015, question number 4, part C. May 2015, question number 4, part C. May 2015, question 4, part C. In case you have the past papers, you go to page 66. When you go to page 66, that is where we shall be able to get that question. Page 66. There is a question number 4, part C. Question number 4, part C. There is a question number 4, part C. So that question 4, part C, question number 4, part C reads that Kalama Works Limited, Kalama Works Limited is considering expansion of its plant capacity. Is considering expansion of its plant capacity to meet the growing demand, of its plastic products, to meet the growing demand of its plastic product. So the company will finance the expansion program to raise shillings 160 million, with either of the two plans below. So plan A, to finance the program with the issue of the 15% debentures. Plan B, to issue the 10 million equity shares at a market price of 16 per share. The company's income statement before expansion is given below. Before the expansion is given below. So you can see the sales. There is the sales, there is costs, then earning before interest and tax. Interest on the debentures, profit before the tax. They were also able to give you the tax, then profit after the tax. Number of the shares in millions, earning per share. So additional information, the company expects earnings before interest and tax with associated probabilities after expansion as follows. So they gave you the figures and also required the earning per share for each plan. So this time around, they are not asking at the point of indifference. They are simply asking you to get the earning per share for each plan, because earnings before interest and tax has already been given. So what we need to do is to check the current capital structure. So in the current capital structure, I would like you to check in the income statement. In the income statement, they have given you the sales, also less the costs. Then also earnings before interest and tax. Interest on debentures, profit before the tax. Then tax, profit after the tax. So in that statement, you can see interest. There is interest. When there is interest, it means there is debt. When there is interest, it means there is debt. They have also given you number of ordinary shares. You can see the number of the shares. That means it also has equity. So as per that part, that company is equity and debt financed. As per that point, the company is equity and debt financed. So when it is equity and debt financed, from what we have done in the previous two questions, you can see how to get the earning per share. You can see how we can be able to compute what is supposed to be the earning per share. So what we need to do is that we start off with plan A. We start off with plan A, how to get the earning per share according to plan A. How to get the earning per share according to plan A. So when you go to plan A, it means that it is equity and debt financed. that company is equity and debt financed firm. The company is named equity and debt financed firm. So if it is equity and debt financed, if it is equity and debt financed, remember earning per share for plan A. Earning per share for plan A is supposed to be given by earnings before interest and tax. We subtract interest, then 1 minus the tax rate. Then we divide by number of the shares, number of ordinary shares, like that. So we want to compute the earning per share for option A. You simply take earnings before interest and tax. We subtract interest, then 1 minus the tax rate. Then we divide by the number of the ordinary shares. We divide by the number of the ordinary shares. So we start by calculating the expected earnings before interest and tax. So under the additional information, they have stated that the company expects earnings before interest and tax with the associated probabilities after expansion as follows. So we can now compute the expected earnings before interest and tax. The expected earnings before interest and the tax. So the first part, they have given you 250 million. So we multiply by the probability of it occurring, which is 0.1. So those millions, they follow under the figures. You see shillings in the millions. That part will be under the 250 million, 450 million, like that. Not so that other part should be probabilities. You see how it is arranged? Yeah. So we take those figures, we multiply the probability. So the second one will be 450 millions. We multiply by 0.3. Then the next one is supposed to be 540 millions. 540 millions. This one will multiply by 0.5. Then the last one will be 630 millions. This one will multiply by 0.1. So that now should be able to give us the expected earnings before interest and the tax. Should be able to give you the expected earnings before interest and the tax. So you are getting which figure? 493. So we get 490 millions. So apart from that, we also compute the interest. We now also calculate the interest. So to get interest, you check what they are currently paying. Currently, they are paying interest on debentures, 15%. So you can see the 50 millions. Yeah, that one is given. They are currently paying 50 million in the income statement. But when you go under plan A, you can see plan A to finance the program with the issue of how much? 15% debenture. But how much are they raising in the first paragraph? They are raising 160 million. So under plan A, to raise 160 million, they issue debentures at an interest rate of 15%. So we add that interest on the new amount to raise. So it is 15% of 160 million. So when you add them together, they should now be able to give you the interest under the new plan. They will be able to give you interest under Plan A, which is giving us 74 million. Then the number of the ordinary shares are given. Number of the ordinary shares are given. Are you able to see down there before additional information? Number of the shares in millions. Then they have also given the earning per share. So number of the shares in million is 50. And so they get 15 million. So you can now calculate what is supposed to be the earning per share for A. So earnings before interest and tax, you have computed, it is 493 million. You minus the interest, 74 million. Then 1 minus 0.3. The tax rate is given as 30%. So divide by 50 million. So that should be able to give you what is supposed to be the earning per share. So tunatupea which here 5.87. Yeah, so that's now for Plan A. Let us now go to Plan B. Let us now check Plan B. We go to Plan B. Now also go to Plan B. Now also check. So when you are under Plan B, we still maintain the same capital structure, because currently you could see in the first paragraph there was interest. So in the capital structure there was interest. There was also number of the ordinary shares, which means the company is equity and debt financed. You use the capital structure to determine that, whether it is equity debt financed, or whether it is only equity financed, or whether it is debt equity preference shares financed. So what we have there, it means that that company is equity and debt finance. It means equity and debt financed firm. So when it is equity and debt financed firm, earning per share for Plan B will still be earnings before interest and tax. We subtract interest, then 1 minus the corporate tax. We still divide by number of the ordinary shares. We still divide by the number of their ordinary shares. So earnings before interest and tax has not changed. They said that we use forecasted. So it was 400 and remember the one you computed? It was 493, isn't it? Yeah, so that one has not changed. But interest will change. Interest is going to change. So interest, when you check under Plan B, you can see Plan B, they said that to issue 10 million equity shares at a market price of how much? 16 per share. So this time it is not debentures, but ordinary shares. So interest, you only take what was there in the capital structure. You see what they are currently paying? It was 50 million. Currently, they are paying the 50 million, which is there in the capital structure. So interest will remain like that. But now, number of the shares. Number of the shares. So number of the shares, currently it is 50 million. But when you check the amount to raise in Plan B, they issue how many ordinary shares to raise that amount. You can see they issued 10 million equity shares. There they have given the number of the shares. Because when you take 10 multiplied by 16, that's what gives you 160. You see the amount they want to raise is 106. So the number of the shares have been given as 10 million, like that. So when you add, they give us 60 millions total shares under Plan B. So now you can calculate earning per share for Plan B, earning per share for Plan B. So it will be equal to earnings before interest and tax, 493 millions. We subtract interest, which is 50 millions. Then 1 minus 0.3. We divide by number of the shares, which are 60 million. So that will give you earning per share. That should be able to give you earning per share for Plan B. Get the earning per share for Plan B. So you are to compare the two. We compare the two, we select the option with the highest earning per share. So Plan A is the one with the highest. Yeah, so now we can advise them that, select Plan A. Select Plan A since it has a higher earning per share. Select Plan A since it has a higher earning per share. We select Plan A since it has a higher earning per share. Then I want us also to add there a note or a new paragraph by noting that when the company uses more debts, in its capital structure, when the company uses more debts in its capital structure, comma, it will have a higher earning per share. It will have a higher earning per share. It will have a higher earning per share due to the following reasons. It will have a higher earning per share due to the following reasons. It will have a higher earning per share due to the following reasons. Number one is that interest on the debt or debenture. Interest on the debts or debenture. Interest on the debts or debenture is a tax allowable expense. Interest on the debt or debenture is a tax allowable expense. It is a tax allowable expense. And therefore, it will lead to interest tax benefit. It will lead to the interest tax benefit. It will lead to the interest tax benefit. Interest tax benefit, thereby a continuation on the same, thereby increasing the earning per share, thereby increasing the earnings per share, thereby increasing the earnings per share. The number two, the reason why it has a higher earning per share is that it will have fewer number of the ordinary shares. It will have fewer number of ordinary shares. It will have fewer number of ordinary shares. It will have fewer number of ordinary shares. Hence, increasing the earning per share. 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 So that is now all about point of indifference. That's now all about the point of indifference. So I want us now to have a new topic as leverage. The next item also want us to discuss leverage. So what we discussed was the point of indifference. So now I want us to look something we refer to as leverage. So that is now our new topic. Look at the term known as leverage. Now look at leverage. You want to know what we mean by leverage and how can we go about to do it, that item known as leverage. So we can introduce by writing something brief that it is the use of the fixed cost. It is the use of the fixed cost. It is the use of the fixed cost in the form of interest and preference dividends. It is the use of the fixed cost in the form of interest and preference dividends. In the form of interest and preference dividends. In order to improve the profitability of the company. In order to improve the profitability of the company. So there's someone using online, someone using the Samsung phone. We don't know whom you are. Kindly you log in using your names. We are not sure whom you are. The Samsung phone. Kindly you log in using your names. Otherwise, I will remove you in the class because I don't know whom you are. You either change or I will be able to remove you from the class group because I'm not sure whom you are. So I will put you in the waiting room, you change, then I will admit you back. But if not, I will remove you in my class because I don't know whom you are. So we continue by saying that it is the use of, we are defining that it is the use of the fixed cost in the form of interest and a preference dividend in order to improve the profitability of the company. In order to improve the profitability of the company. Then we continue on the same by notion. Therefore, leverage refers to the use of debts. Therefore, leverage refers to the use of debts. It refers to the use of debts in the company's capital structure. It refers to the use of debts in the company's capital structure, use of debts in the company's capital structure. And there are normally three types of leverage. And there are normally three types of leverage. And there are normally three types of leverage. Number one will be operating leverage. Number one will be operating leverage. Number two will be financial leverage. Number two will be the financial leverage. Then number three will be combined or total leverage. The combined or total leverage. So now we start off with operating leverage. We start off with operating leverage. So under the operating leverage, we summarize that. Under the operating leverage, we summarize that it is the use of operating costs. It is the use of the operating costs. It is the use of the operating cost in order to improve the profitability of the company. It is the use of the operating cost in order to improve the profitability of the company. In order to improve the profitability of the company. Then we continue by writing that it shows the percentage change. It shows the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax. It shows the percentage change. It shows the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax. It shows the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax as a result of changes in the sales. So it shows the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax as a result of sorry, this one. So we are saying that it shows the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax as a result of the changes in the sales. Then another paragraph is that it is calculated using the degree of operating leverage. It is calculated using the degree of operating leverage. It is calculated using the degree of operating leverage, which is calculated as follows. It is calculated using the degree of operating leverage, which is calculated as follows. Which is calculated as follows, depending on the information available, which is calculated as follows. Depending on the information available, which is calculated as follows, depending on the information available. So we start with, so we say that degree of operating leverage. The degree of operating leverage is equal to percentage change in the earnings, so we write it this way, percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax, the percentage change. Percentage change in the earnings before interest and the tax. Then we divide by the percentage change in the sales. percentage change. So you simply take the percentage change in the earnings before interest and tax. We divide by the percentage change in the sales. Divide by the percentage change in the sales. So that is now one of the formula we should be able to apply. B is that degree of operating leverage can also be given by, so I will give you some initials which I'll be able to define. It is also given by Q, then P minus B, divided by Q, then P minus B, then we subtract F. So I'll be able to explain what each one of them stands for. 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 So this one, we are saying that this is the degree of operating leverage. It is supposed to be given by Q in the brackets of P minus B. We also divide by Q in the brackets of P minus B. We close the brackets with minus F. Where Q, someone is saying the writing is not clear. I'm repeating by explaining because there is a reflection on the board from our lightings. And that's why I'm explaining them. So just listen the way I'm explaining, you correct them because there's nothing I will do about it because it is the reflection from the lights that we have in class. But I'm explaining them in details for you to get that part. So just listen. After I've written, I'm repeating each by more than twice. Like this one, I say that degree of operating leverage, it is given by the percentage change in the earnings before interest and the tax. You divide by percentage change in the sales. So I've explained that. You should be able to write it in case you cannot be able to see. Then this other one I've said degree of operating leverage will be equal to Q in the brackets of P minus B. You close the brackets. Then also Q, you open the bracket, P minus B, you close the bracket. Then you subtract F. Then I will say where Q is the quantity, where Q is the quantity in units, where Q is the quantity in units produced and sold. Q is the quantity in units produced and sold. Then P is the selling price per unit. 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 V is the variable cost per unit. V is the variable cost per unit. V is the variable cost per unit. Then F is the total fixed cost. F is the total fixed costs. F is the total fixed costs. F is meant to be the total fixed costs. So that is now another formula on how we can be able to compute the degree of operating leverage. Then C, another formula on how to get the same. Degree of operating leverage can also be equal to Q divided by Q minus Q at break-even point like that. So also Q can be degree of operating leverage is also equal to Q divided by Q minus Q. This one is at break-even point. Q at break-even point. Q at break-even point. Then I would like to show you how to calculate that break-even point. I want to show you how we can be able to compute that particular break-even point. So if you want to compute the break-even point in units, if you want to get the break-even point in units, break-even point in units will be equal to F divided by the contribution margin. That is F divided by P minus P, like that. So the break-even point in units will simply be equal to F divided by the contribution margin, which is the same as F divided by P minus P. Contribution margin is the same as P minus P. That's now how to compute the break-even point in units. We can also compute the break-even point in value. Break-even point in value. So to get the break-even point in value, it will simply be given by the fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio. It is the fixed cost divided by the contribution margin ratio, where contribution margin ratio, it is P minus P divided by P, like that. When you want to get the contribution margin ratio, it is simply P minus P divided by P. That's how you come up with the contribution margin ratio. So to get the contribution margin ratio, it is simply P minus B divided by P. And also remember that when you take contribution margin ratio, when you take the contribution margin ratio, then you add the variable cost ratio, you get 1. So contribution margin ratio plus the variable cost ratio, they should be able to add up to 1. The contribution margin ratio plus the variable cost ratio, they should be able to add up to 1. Then I've given you the formula for the contribution margin ratio. What I should now give you is the variable cost ratio. So variable cost ratio, it is simply B divided by P. To calculate the variable cost ratio, it will be equal to V divided by P. V is the variable cost per unit. Remember, P is the selling price per unit. So that is now a summary of the information we shall be using when we compute the degree of operating leverage. Yeah. Yes. Okay. I thought kuna mahali mnapotea. Okay. Yeah, I'm just simplifying them because of the element of your syllabus. We cannot go into much details. I rather simplify the formulas, then we go to the practical part, the question. It will make more sense when we go to the questions. So that is now number 1, which was operating leverage. We now go to number 2, financial leverage. We go to number 2 as the financial leverage. We go to number 2 as financial leverage. Financial leverage. So for the financial leverage, we write that it is the use of the financing costs. It is the use of the financing costs. It is the use of the financing costs in order to improve the earning per share of the company. It is the use of the financing costs in order to improve the earning per share of the company. It is the use of the financing costs in order to improve earning per share of the company. Then we continue by writing that it shows the percentage change. It shows the percentage change in the earning per share. It shows the percentage change in the earnings per share. It shows the percentage change in the earnings per share as a result of the changes in the earnings before interest and tax. So it shows the percentage change in the earnings per share as a result of the change in the earnings before interest and tax, as a result of the change in the earnings before interest and the tax. Then we continue by writing that it is computed using the degree of the financial leverage as follows. It is computed using the degree of the financial leverage as follows. It is computed using the degree of the financial leverage as follows. It is computed using the degree of the financial leverage as follows. So the first one, to compute the degree of financial leverage, it will be given by percentage change in the earnings per share. Percentage change in earnings per share. Percentage change in the earnings per share. We divide by the percentage change. Percentage change in earnings before interest and the tax. So degree of the financial leverage will be given by percentage change in the earnings per share divided by the percentage change in earnings before interest and the tax. Percentage change in the earnings before interest and the tax. So that will be one of the formula we should be able to use. Or alternatively, another formula is that degree of financial leverage. The degree of financial leverage. It can also be given by Q, then P minus P minus F, like that. Then we also divide by Q, P minus F. And we also subtract interest expenses. Then we also subtract the preference dividends. The preference dividends, like that. The preference dividends, like that. So you simply take what we have there as Q in the brackets of P minus P, you close the brackets. Then F, you also divide by the same Q, then P minus F minus, so the P also minus F. Then we subtract interest expenses. Then we minus the preference dividend. But under the preference dividend, this figure divided by 1 minus the tax rate. Where there is this preference dividend, divide it by 1 minus the tax rate. Where there is preference dividends, divide it by 1 minus the tax rate. So those are now the summary. So the rest we know them. We know what we mean by Q, we know what we mean by P, we know V, we know F. The only new item there is the interest expenses and the preference dividend. Then this one is the corporate tax. The T there is the corporate tax, 1 minus the corporate tax at that level. So that's now the summary for the financial leverage. Then finally, we got number 3 as combined leverage or total leverage. We now got number 3 as the combined leverage or the total leverage, combined leverage, or simply the total leverage. So under the combined leverage or total leverage, we summarize that it is the use of both operating and financial leverage. It is the use of both operating and financial leverage. It is the use of both operating and financial leverage in order to improve the profitability of the company. It is the use of both operating and financial leverage in order to improve the profitability of the company. In order to improve the profitability of the company. It is measured using the degree of the combined leverage. It is measured using the degree of the combined leverage. It is measured using the degree of the combined leverage. It is measured using the degree of the combined leverage, which is expressed as follows. 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 So, when you want to compute the degree of combined leverage, so degree of combined leverage. So degree of the combined leverage will simply be given by degree of operating leverage multiplied by the degree of financial leverage. We have calculated all of them. So if you want to compute the degree of combined leverage, simply take degree of operating leverage multiplied by the degree of financial leverage. Then alternatively, also to compute the degree of combined leverage, you simply take the percentage change in the earning per share, percentage change in the earnings per share, percentage change in the earnings per share divided by percentage change in the sales, percentage change in the sales. So degree of the combined leverage will be given by percentage change in the earning per share divided by percentage change in the sales, divided by the percentage change in the sales. So now it is time to look at some questions in your past papers. So the first question should be June 2013. June 2013, question 2, part C. I want you to check in your past papers, June 2013, question number 2, part C. June 2013, question 2, part C. Sorry. So you can see it is on which page? So online you can check on page 86. So there's a question there, question number 2, part C. When you check there, the question number 2, part C. So the one for the following data is available. Are you able to see for farm A? So the question reads that the following data is available for farm A. They gave you the quantity for farm A, selling price, variable cost, fixed cost, interest, then also the preferred dividend and the tax rate. Required, Roman letter 1, overall break-even point in units. Roman letter 2, degree of operating leverage. Roman letter 3, degree of financial leverage. Roman letter 4, degree of total leverage. The degree of the total leverage. So to compute the break-even point, I will compute both in units and in value. So break-even point in units, break-even point in units, it is supposed to be given by the fixed cost divided by the contribution margin. Then we have said it's the same as the fixed cost divided by P minus P. So F is the total fixed cost. In that question, you have been given the fixed cost as 40,000. The fixed cost is as 40,000. So P is the selling price per unit. You can see it is how much? 20. Then we minus P, the variable cost per unit, which is 15. So get that break-even point in units. So come up with that break-even point in units. How many units? Yeah, so that is now for Roman letter 1. So they wanted in units. Sometimes they may ask you to compute in value, but the question did not ask. So assuming you are to compute the break-even point, in value. So if it was in value, it is supposed to be given by the fixed cost divided by contribution margin ratio. Divided by the contribution margin ratio. So first, we get the contribution margin ratio. Is P minus P divided by P. So P is the selling price per unit, which is 20. P is the variable cost per unit, which is 15. Also divided by 20 by that. So 20 minus 15 divided by 20 is 0.2. So you get 0.25. So now we can get what is supposed to be the break-even point in value. So fixed cost, we know it is 40,000. Then now divide by 0.25. So that should now be able to give you the break-even point. So break-even point in value, you simply take fixed cost is 40,000. Contribution margin ratio you have calculated it is 0.25. So you divide by 0.25. So that should give us which value? Yeah, so that is in case The question will also have asked you to compute the break-even point. The break-even point in value. You could also have calculated it in that manner. So now we go to the Roman letter 2, degree of operating leverage. We go to the Roman letter 2, where we now compute the degree of operating leverage. We now see how to get the degree of operating leverage. So degree of operating leverage. Degree of operating leverage. It is supposed to be given by. So to compute the degree. So degree of operating leverage. Degree of operating leverage. It is supposed to be given by. So I will use the second formula I gave you for this question. It is Q, then P minus B divided by Q, P minus B minus F, like that. So Q is the quantity which was meant to be 20,000 units. 20,000 units. So P is the selling price per unit, which is 20 minus 15, like that. We also divide by 20,000, then 20 minus 15. So F is the fixed cost. So our total fixed costs are 40,000. So that now should be able to give you the degree of operating leverage. It should be able to give you the degree of operating leverage. Sorry.
Nakuona.
So that one has given us it here. Now we go to Roman letter 3, the degree of financial leverage. We now go to the degree of financial leverage. So degree of financial leverage, the degree of financial leverage is supposed to be given by Q and P minus P minus F. Then we are using the second formula for each, and we also divide by Q, then P minus B minus F. Then you also subtract interest. Then you also subtract the preference dividends. Then we divide by 1 minus the tax. So all that information is there. We only substitute them in the formula. All the information is there. So like now Q is 20,000. So P is 20 minus 15. Then fixed cost is 40,000. We also divide by the same information. So we subtract interest. So interest there, it is meant to be 10,000. And we subtract the preference dividends. It is 5,000 or 6,500. So get that degree of financial leverage. Now get the degree of the financial leverage. Nakuja ngapi? $1.4. Yeah, so after that, we go to the Roman letter 4, degree of the total leverage. So degree of the total leverage is the same as the degree of the combined leverage, whereby you multiply degree of operating leverage by the degree of financial leverage. So degree of operating leverage, it was here. 1.67. Now this one is 1.4. So that now should be able to give you the degree of the combined leverage. So get the degree of the combined leverage, you simply multiply degree of operating leverage by degree of the financial leverage. So when you multiply, it will give us 2 points. Yeah, so 2.338. Sorry? They have been shillings. Yes. So now after that, there is another similar question, November 2018, question number 1, part C. November 2018. Question number 1, part C. November 2018, question number 1, part C. So November 2018, question 1, part C. Question 1, part C. Question 1, part C. So they have asked you that the fixed operating costs are shillings 5.8 million. That figure you change it is 5.8. The fixed operating cost of the pharmaceutical limited are shillings 5.8 million. Yeah, some it's not clear, but in case it is not clear, it should be 5.8 million, not 58. It should be 5.8 million per annum. And the variable cost ratio is 0.2. Variable cost ratio is 0.2. Additional information, note number 1. The company has shillings 2 million in the bonds outstanding with an annual coupon interest rate of 8%, with an annual coupon rate of 8%. Note number 2. The company has 30,000 preference shares outstanding, which pays 2 as dividend per share each year. Then the company has 100,000 ordinary shares outstanding. Note number 4, revenue of the company are 8 million per annum. The company is in the 30% corporate tax bracket. So now required Roman letter 1, degree of operating leverage. Roman letter 2, degree of financial leverage. Roman letter 3, degree of the combined leverage. So we need to do some small workings in relation to the question before we answer. We need to do some small workings in relation to the question before we do something. So to compute the degree, there is some information here. I gave you a formula of the variable cost ratio. Variable cost ratio. I gave you a formula of the variable cost ratio. It is B divided by B. It's B divided by B. So variable cost ratio is supposed to be the variable cost per unit divided by the selling price per unit. But again, instead of the variable cost per unit, it can also be the same as total variable cost. So total variable cost, you multiply Q by E. Instead of the variable cost per unit, it can also be total variable cost. Also, instead of the selling price per unit, it can also be the total sales. So when you want to get the variable cost ratio, it is variable cost per unit divided by the selling price per unit. But it can also be the same as when you use total variable cost, also divided by the total sales. So that will still give you the same. So variable cost ratio is given as 0.2. The variable cost ratio is given as 0.2. Then total variable cost, we don't know that figure. Total variable cost, we don't know it. But we know the total sales revenue. Total sales revenue is given to you. When you check over in the question, they were able to give us in the note number 4. You can see note 4. Revenue for the company is how much? 8 million. Are you able to see that note number 4? Yeah, so revenue will be the same as our total sales. Revenue will be now the same as our total sales. So the figure has been given as 8 million. 8 million like that. So we make QB to be the subject. QB to be, so we take 0.2 multiplied by 8 million. 0.2 multiplied by 8 million. Take 0.2 multiplied by 8 million. So which is going to give us okay. 1.6 million. Then we want to start to the Roman letter 1, the degree of operating leverage. So to compute the degree of operating leverage, it is supposed to be Q, then P minus B. Like that. Then we also divide by Q, P minus B. So when you open the brackets, you see when you open the bracket, it is Q, P, like that, minus Q, P. We also divide by Q, P, minus F. So we can now simplify it in that manner. So We already have QP. We already have QP. QP, non-unhappy, the cells. 8 millions. We have used it upward. So QP, it is 8 million. We have seen it up there. Then QB to make calculate more than 1.6 millions. Then now we also divide by the same, which is 8 millions minus 1.6 million. So fixed costs to the sum of 5.8. So the fixed cost is 5.8 millions. So get that figure. So that should give you the degree of operating leverage. To be able to give you the degree of operating leverage. So we go to Roman letter 2, degree of financial leverage. We go to the Roman letter 2, the degree of the financial leverage. So let us also compute now the degree of financial leverage. Also compute the degree of financial leverage. So degree of financial leverage. Degree of financial leverage. It is Q B minus B minus F. Also divide by the same Q with B minus B minus F. We subtract interest. Then we subtract reference dividends. The reference dividends. We divide by 1 minus the tax. So when we open the bracket, QP was which figure? 8 million. Then QB was 1.6. Then fixed cost was 5. Was it 5.8? Yeah. So we divide again by the same interest. 8 million minus 1.6 million. So interest, I want you to go to the note number 1. The company has 2 million in bonds outstanding with the annual coupon interest rate of 8%. So what is 8%? What is 8% of 2 million? 160,000. So 160,000 is the same as 0.16. 0.16. Then reference dividends. The answers are in shillings per unit. The answers are shillings. So now minus the preference dividend was given. Not number what? Not number 2. The company has 30,000 preference shares outstanding. Each pays 2 as the dividend per share each year. So 30,000 multiplied by 2. It acquires 60,000, isn't it? So 60,000 is the same as 0.06. Then divide by 1 minus the corporate tax. So corporate tax was given. It was given as 30%, which is the same as 0.3. So what do we get as there? So mnapata ngapi? Online, what is the degree of financial leverage? Degree of operating leverage, it was 10 points. Na someone amenipea ni 1.69. Okay. 1.69. Then finally, you also compute the degree of combined leverage. So Roman letter 3 is the degree of the combined leverage. So for the degree of the combined leverage, simply get the degree of operating leverage multiplied by the degree of financial leverage. So you multiply the two. So that is now all for that question. So you are getting 18.03. Yeah, so we need to do another question, which will be November 2016. November 2016. Question number 5, part C. November 2016, question number 5, part C. November 2016, question number 5, part C. But we cannot be able to finish it now. So I'm told you don't have financial reporting today. Okay. So I will not keep you up to the afternoon. So I think we can just have it up to that point, because we are supposed to have an alternate day in the afternoon. But now that you don't have a class at 11, because you are not partly off in the side of the syllabus, I will just let you go until next week. Yeah, so online we can stop there for now. When we meet in the class next week, we shall do the one for November 2016, question 5, part C. November 2016, question number 5, part C. So you will remind me about that question. So we can stop there for now. Yeah, I hope we are making progress. Yes. Okay.